The sun was just rising over the savannah. A light mist crept across the tall grass, and the fresh air still carried the breath of the night. A group of Homo erectus moved in silence, tense, like shadows in motion. There was no time for rituals or waiting. Survival began with the very first ray of light. A mother held her child against her chest, wrapped in worn hides, while a young man with taut muscles gripped a fire-hardened spear. Others carried sharp stones, fragments of flint chipped again and again until they yielded razor edges. The tribe moved as one, every gesture guided by shared experience. One glance was enough to warn them all. A raised arm meant stop. A hand slicing the air meant move forward. No words, only ragged breaths and cautious steps. The scent of water pulled them on. Ahead, the silver line of a river stretched across the horizon, both promise and danger. The group was starving, their stomachs empty from days of failed foraging and interrupted hunts. Water meant life, but it also meant predators. A deep roar rolled across the horizon. The sound vibrated in their bones, raising the hair on their skin. Their bodies shrank into themselves as if the very air had thickened. Every eye turned toward the tall grass. There, two silhouettes slid forward with the patience of hunters, hungry lions. The elder of the tribe, bent but unyielding, lifted a dry branch and waved it, giving direction. It was not a call to attack, but to guide. Everyone understood. They had to move without drawing attention. But the dry grass crackled beneath their feet, and a single misstep could mean death. They advanced slowly, hiding the children at the center of the group. The young man with the spear positioned himself at the rear, watching the lions. The roar came again, closer this time. The lion's ears flickered above the grass, barely visible but enough to make the fear tangible. Suddenly, a fallen log gave way beneath a boy trying to cross. The sharp crack thundered through the silence. The lions reacted instantly. A swift leap, a golden flash through the grass. The group erupted into motion. They leapt over bushes, crawled across the dirt, shouting guttural cries to scare the predators. The mother with her child stumbled, and the spear-bearer grabbed her, dragging her forward. The chase was chaotic, brutal. Muscles burned, breath turned into fire. One man hurled a stone with all his strength. It struck a lion's flank, knocking its charge off course. Not a victory, just a few seconds stolen. The tribe scattered, sprinting toward the silver line of the river. The water appeared before them like a real mirage. They splashed through it desperately, while the lions halted at the bank, snarling, frustrated by the current. It wasn't true safety, but it was a breath of reprieve. The group collapsed on the far shore, gasping. The child cried. The mother held him tight, trembling with both fear and relief. The elder laid his hand on the spear-bearer's shoulder, a brief gesture heavy with meaning. They had survived, for now. But the river brought not only water, it brought danger. Bright eyes gleamed in the thickets across the bank. A lone hyena had caught their scent, and its shrill call was soon answered by others. The guttural chorus grew louder, and the tribe knew what it meant. There were too many. They hurried into the nearby forest. Branches offered cover, but also traps. The ground was wet, slippery. A boy ran ahead, and the mud gave way beneath his feet, slamming him down with a dull thud. His cry drew a hyena which lunged toward him. Then came the first great turning point. A woman, swift and fierce, seized a stone and hurled it with instinctive precision. The projectile smashed into the hyena's snout, throwing off its attack. The boy staggered to his feet, and two others dragged him back into the group. But the hyena pack did not retreat. They circled the forest edge, eyes gleaming in the gloom, their sinister laughter shattering the fragile calm. The group pressed against the trees, forming a protective circle with the children in the middle. Stones in hand, spears raised, their chests heaved with frantic breaths. The hyenas crept closer. The clash was inevitable. And so, the savannah roared once more, demanding that the humans prove whether they were hunters or prey. The air grew heavy. The tribe, cornered in the dimness of the forest, felt the echo of the hyena's guttural laughter. Eyes gleamed between the shadows, moving with cunning, waiting for the moment to strike. The group formed a tight circle. the strongest on the perimeter, the children in the center. Spears, hardened in fire, trembled in their hands, ready to pierce flesh. Stones, smooth and heavy, rested in sweaty palms. No one spoke, only ragged breaths and hearts pounding like war drums. A flash. A hyena leapt from the bushes, its fangs glistening. A young man turned at the last second, thrusting the spear forward. The impact rang with a dull crack. The beast fell, wounded but not dead. Another lunged from the side, knocking a man to the ground. The group roared fiercely, hurling stones, striking the earth with branches. The forest erupted in chaos, growls, guttural cries, blood on the ground. The woman who had saved the young man before lifted a stone once again and hurled it with fury, shattering a hyena's skull. The rest hesitated, retreating. The pack was fierce, but the group, united, was fiercer still. The clash turned into a test of endurance. At last, the hyenas slunk back into the shadows, their laughter fading into the distance. Silence returned, but it was thick, heavy with wounds and sweat. 2 men bled from deep scratches. A mother clutched her son to her chest, still trembling. The old man, gasping, raised his staff to the sky, as if in thanks to invisible forces. The tribe had endured. With the danger gone, they pressed deeper into the forest. There they found an unexpected gift, the remains of an antelope, half devoured by another predator. To the tribe, it was not carrion, but opportunity. Meat meant strength. The marrow in the bones meant energy for the coming days. The men sharpened stones, cut strips of meat, and divided them. The smell was strong, metallic but necessary. The group ate greedily, chewing slowly, savoring each bite as if it were sacred. Children licked the grease from their fingers. The elders closed their eyes as they swallowed. The inner fire was rekindled, but the savanna offered no respite for long. As they carved the antelope, the sky began to darken. An uneasy breeze stirred the leaves. The wind roared suddenly, tearing branches, bending grass. Thunder cracked with fury overhead. The storm had arrived. The rain began as a fine drizzle, but in seconds turned into a deluge. Thick drops pelted their bare skin like stones, mud forming beneath their feet. Lightning lit the forest in white flashes, each thunderclap making the smallest tremble. The tribe ran frantically, seeking shelter. Water streamed down their faces, pooling in their eyes, blinding their sight. The wind howled like an invisible predator, tearing branches and toppling young trees. They found a clearing surrounded by fallen trunks. There they worked together with fierce urgency. Thick branches piled up, large leaves laid as an improvised roof, mud pressed into gaps. Every pair of hands contributed, even the children, who carried dripping leaves. Inside the makeshift shelter, the group huddled together. The mother wrapped her child in soaked furs, shielding him with her own body. The elders were placed in the center, surrounded by young ones who served as a human shield against the cold. The rain hammered the leafy roof relentlessly, like war drums. Fire was impossible. The dampness smothered every spark. Darkness reigned. The tribe embraced one another, sharing warmth, trembling in silence. Each thunderclap felt like a threat from the gods, each lightning strike a reminder of their fragility. Hours dragged on, filled with fear and endurance. Some wept quietly, others closed their eyes and bore it, but none gave in. The storm was an enemy they could not fight, only resist, and resist they did. Resist. Finally, after an eternity of wind and water, the roar subsided. The rain dwindled to timid drops. The forest was transformed. Fallen branches, deep puddles, the smell of wet earth saturating everything. The tribe emerged from the shelter, exhausted, drenched, but alive. The old man lifted his staff, pointing to a tree toppled by the storm. Its roots had left a hollow in the ground, a possible refuge for the future. The message was clear. From destruction, opportunity is born. The group reorganized. With part of the antelope salvaged, they packed meat in large leaves, tying them with plant fibers. The journey had to continue. The savanna, now waterlogged and muddy, looked more dangerous than ever, but the group walked tall, their steps firm, their gazes harder. The storm had tested their endurance, and they had survived together. Without fire, without new weapons, only with the strength of their unity. But fate still held one last trial. As the sun fell, painting the horizon red, a different roar rose from the undergrowth. Deep, grave, solitary. It was not the laughter of hyenas nor the roar of a lion. It was the growl of a jaguar, the silent hunter of the thicket. The group's eyes met in an instant of panic and resolve. The meat they carried was a beacon, and the jaguar, a mortal rival. The climax was about to begin. The jaguar's roar thundered through the thicket, deep and sustained, a warning of dominance. The air grew heavy, as if every leaf, every branch, every drop of water knew what was about to unfold. The tribe froze, bodies tense, eyes searching the shadows. There it was, two yellow eyes glowing in the undergrowth, a powerful body crouched low, muscles coiled to strike. The jaguar did not hunt merely for hunger. It hunted for instinct, for territory, for supremacy. And it had chosen the tribe as its prey. The humans regrouped instantly. Children were placed at the center, shielded by mothers and elders. The strongest took the front, spears raised, stones ready to be hurled. The young man with the spear, the one who had saved the mother at the river, clenched his teeth, sweat streaming down his brow. He knew one mistake would mean death. The jaguar roared again and leapt, a golden blur in the air, a movement perfect and brutal. The tribe cried out in a guttural chorus, the ancestral sound of resistance. The young man's spear rose, striking the beast's chest. The impact was brutal. The animal twisted midair, slamming the young man to the ground. The jaguar roared in pain but did not fall. Its jaws snapped, claws tearing into the earth. Another tribesman hurled a stone, striking its flank. A woman waved burning branches. They had managed to kindle embers from the storm with dry bark. The fire crackled, and the jaguar hesitated. The group encircled the beast, pounding the ground, shouting, brandishing flames. The predator lunged again, this time at the mother, shielding her child. The old man raised his staff and struck the jaguar's skull. The blow was strong, but not enough to kill. The animal staggered back, wavering yet still dangerous. The wounded young man, his face smeared with blood and dirt, clenched his jaw, yanked the spear from the beast's chest and drove it again into its side. A deafening roar filled the air. The jaguar writhed, lashed one final claw at the void, and at last collapsed, its body motionless on the damp earth. Silence returned, heavy, solemn. The tribe stood frozen, as if unwilling to believe the beast had truly fallen. Then came the sound of ragged breaths, a stifled sob, and a guttural cry bursting into victory. Two companions lifted the young man. He was wounded, but alive. The child still wept, but in his mother's arms, he was safe. The old man, gasping, raised his staff to the sky for the third time that day. A gesture of gratitude, of acknowledgement, of faith that they had overcome yet another trial of the savannah. With the jaguar's body lying before them, the tribe understood what it meant. They had faced the deadliest predator of the forest, and they had endured. The antelope's meat would be eaten that night, but the memory of this battle would be passed on in gestures, in scars, in the silent retelling from one generation to the next. Night fell, and the group gathered around the fire. The rain had left enough damp wood, but the embers were fed until they grew into tall flames. Heat lit their faces, shadows danced upon stone and exhausted bodies. Meat sizzled over the fire, its aroma filling the air like a balm after so much fear. The children slept against their mother's arms. The elders rested with eyes closed, breathing slowly, recalling storms, roars, and escapes from their youth. The young watched the fire in silent pride, knowing they had proven their strength, that they had protected their people. The old man passed a burning twig over the young man's wound, sealing it with fire to stop the bleeding. The boy clenched his teeth, enduring the pain without a sound. That scar would be his mark, a reminder that he had faced the jaguar and survived. The story's imaginary camera rose slowly. The tribe gathered together, tiny beneath the starry sky, surrounded by the vastness of the savannah. Each spark from the fire seemed like an echo of hope, a message to the universe that though fragile, though vulnerable, humans endured. The epic of that day closed with an eternal truth. Unity was the only weapon against the relentless power of nature. It was not an individual who had survived, but the tribe. Not a lone hero, but a chorus of bodies, gestures, and strength that had resisted together. The dawn of the next day would find them walking once more, toward new trials, new dangers, new migrations. But what had happened that night would be etched into their bones as myth. The first great battle, the first victory against the darkness of the savannah. This was only one day in the life of our ancestors, a story of fire, blood, and endurance that marked the beginning of the path to what we are today. If you want to keep exploring the limits of humanity in prehistory, subscribe and join us on this epic journey. Each tale is a heartbeat of our past, and each heartbeat reminds us that survival was always our very first triumph.